So manipulation is not just something that narcissists and psychopaths have the market cornered on. There are quite a few empathic and highly sensitive people who have had to use manipulation, not because they are amused by it, not because it serves their purpose without, any regard to anyone else, but because they are so deeply wounded and so deeply in a state of powerlessness that they feel as though they cannot demand or ask for their needs to be met. They cannot expect their needs to be met. They need to manipulate their way to get their needs met and work people in order to get their needs met, which again is not the same as narcissism. Narcissism is such a deep wounding that the narcissist will not look at their own self. The narcissist has to create this entire shell so that they don't have to look within, because they are so deeply, their self-esteem is so low that they don't believe they could bear it. And with that being the case, then you get the highly sensitives and the empaths who do use manipulation. And they may not be consciously aware of it, but they are very much craving healing and seeking safety. They just have found that manipulation is the way to get it. And what happens here is, first of all, there are people who are naturally gifted with empathy, naturally gifted with, psychic gifts, naturally gifted with these universal gifts that help them tap into something deeper. There are also the kinds of empaths and highly sensitive people that have been developed. And people develop empathy as a skill for defense. So sometimes a child will be dropped into a life in which their parents are abusive, or in which they are friends with the school bully. That was my case. Or in which they, have brothers or sisters that are abusive. And this child will develop this ability to read people and to check in with them, because really this child has to be able to walk into the room and sense if mom, dad, brother, sister, friend is crackling, and if they're about to go off, so that this child can act accordingly. Now, in the case of codependence, this might look like the fawn response. This might be, okay, I can feel someone's crackling in this room. I'm going to placate them. I'm going to love them so much that they're not going to go off on me, and I'm going to be safe. In the case of manipulation, and codependence is a form of manipulation, it's a giving with a motive, it's loving with a motive, but that's for another video. But in the case of other forms of manipulation, sometimes this can turn into a ringleader mentality or a puppet master mentality within the family dynamic. And that sounds dark as all hell, I get it. But there's a very wounded empath that can read people, can sense what they need. And sometimes this empath will actually go so far as to work the family dynamic and take on this feeling of needing to be the leader so that everything else is okay. This often happens with older siblings. This can happen with children who have had to be the parent in their parent-child relationship, where they didn't get their needs met by the parents, so they had to put themselves in a position of leadership. So what you get is a child who wants love, who wants safety, who wants that security, who cannot get it from their caretakers, who cannot get it from their family dynamic. So the thought begins to dawn on them that, okay, if I can manipulate my way to get my needs met, if I can manipulate my family into being this peaceful, good, happy thing that I think it should be, everything will be okay. It is not narcissism, it is not psychopathy in this case. That is a very, very wounded version of love, and that's a very, very wounded desire to be safe, and it's actually a very, very wounded masculine energy, because remember, masculine energy is the giver, the nurturer, the caretaker. And so when you get a child who doesn't know what to do with all of this, sometimes manipulation is the way to get it done for them. And we can have a lot of compassion for that child, and we can have a lot of compassion for the adult that they became. And And again, the way that you can tell the difference between a very deeply wounded empath who is craving safety and only knows that manipulation is the way to get that safety and that security and that love, versus a psychopath who is just using manipulation tactics to get what they want, hang everybody else, hang the safety, hang the love, hang the whatever, is that there's a feeling of duty with it. With that ringleader mentality is a feeling of duty. I have to be the one in control because otherwise everything's going to fall apart for everyone in my life. And because these people actually do feel so deeply connected to their loved ones, they take on this mentality of I am responsible for them. So it's a sort of offshoot of codependence when you get that ringleader mentality. And that one is healable. That one is something, I mean, really, everyone has the capacity to heal. It's just a matter of whether they want to or not, right? But that feeling of I must be the one in control, I must be the one who manages my entire family's welfare, it is a very exhausting place to be. So if you are that person, it is okay to let your family do their thing. These are all individual souls. They all have their own individual lives. They all have their own individual past. And I know that's got to be like nails on a chalkboard if you really do feel as though you are the one who must manage and protect your family. I get it. But I am saying it's okay to let that go. If you know somebody who is like this, or maybe you are the receiving family member who just wants to live your life, and then you've got this person who's trying to keep their thumb on you, I wonder if there's another light that you could be seeing this from. And again, sometimes it's a very deeply unfortunate fact that some parents are manipulative, some parents are narcissistic, some parents are abusive. And if that's the case, you don't have to continue to engage with that parent. But if you know, and if you've experienced your parent as loving and kind and empathetic and just so freaking exhausted and stressed from trying to hold it all together, maybe having some grace. Go ahead and live your own life. And if they are trying to control, it's okay to see through them and to see, okay, I'm not going to engage with this manipulation. I'm not going to engage with the guilt trip. I'm not going to engage with this elaborately planned set-up meeting just to get your point across. You don't have to engage with that behavior, but you can still see this person for the wound that they have carried all of their life and for their desire to hold it all together. And again, whether you choose to engage with this person or not, perhaps it will give your mind a little bit of peace knowing that this is actually coming from a place of love, not psychopathy. And again, if it is coming from a place of psychopathy, by all means, get yourself safe. You do not have to engage with that. This is just another video to give you another option. As always, happy healing.